Okay, welcome back to Clout 941, and now that we found out a little bit about Tom Knight, the guy, we're going to find out a little bit about what he thinks about the sheriff's office. Tom, myself as an outside observer, you know, I've been around in the Monge administration, the Balco administration, and one of the biggest things I've seen is the growth in the command staff. Sheriff Monge had a real small command staff and a number of kind of close confidants around him, and since Sheriff Buckle's taken over sheriff's office, it's really exploded, the number of officers and the pay and all of that. And that's been a criticism that Dave Gustafson, the sheriff candidate, leveled against the sheriff's office. You haven't really talked a whole lot about that issue, so I wanted to hear your perspective.
Well, from a professional standpoint, the role of the Sheriff's Department has changed a little bit in the last 8 years after 9/11. Local law enforcement has taken on a lot more responsibilities than it had 8, 12, 14 years ago, and we've seen the role of law enforcement change from a law enforcement officer to a professional. And sometimes when you move into that realm, you sometimes as an organization grow and maybe need to grow. So perception there from this community or maybe individuals is that the command staff is bloated. I choose looking at an organization to make sure that I don't make judgments of what a previous administrator did. But one thing that I did do with the state when I worked in my former career of the Highway Patrol is that we did become a little top heavy. We did become a little bit mid-level heavy. And what we did was we did an agency evaluation on ourselves, a staff inspection, so to speak, on ourselves. And that's something that isn't being done right now with the organization that I will implement. And that inspection enables us to, it's a 360 on yourself. You see yourself in the mirror. You see what type of work you're doing, if you're being efficient at doing that work, if your span of control, which is the amount of people under a supervisor, has become too small, where you have more leadership, I guess you can say more chiefs and not enough Indians. And I've done this before with the state, where we actually leveled off our upper level command, of which I was a part of. And when I left the organization back in April, the 7-county region I ever saw is we had a significant less upper level command and mid-level command, and we had more positions on the road for visibility and for public service. So a lot of it would be to get into the organization, do a 4-month analysis on the roles and responsibilities of the command staff, what their job functions are, and if that span of control is too big or too small. And then through attrition, retirements, and resignations, you downsize it systematically. And you also identify if you have civilian personnel that can, if you have civilian personnel that can provide some of the job functions that a law enforcement officer who is much more highly paid and the pensions are much more than a civilian employee, if a civilian personnel can handle some of those job responsibilities.
Okay. The other thing that I hear a lot from the rank and file officers is that this is at least the perception, whether it's reality I don't know, but a lot of the promotions, the senior promotions, have been based on politics, and the officers who worked on the sheriff's political campaign got the high positions, and they haven't been so much based on higher education or test scores or training. They've been based on politics. I'm sure you have a lot of people out there working hard on your campaign who expect to get something in return. How do you feel about that? What's your position?
Well, I believe in merit system promotions, and I've been very fortunate is that I have had opportunities where people have wanted to provide me with financial assistance or just call me up and want to become involved. And I make that very clear to the individuals that, that there will be no special favors given back. And I think that's good. They don't want that. I think the bulk of the officers who have helped me initially to get started, the deputies who come on board after they had a buy-in to me have helped me. But they don't want anything. And when I talk to them, they don't want any special returns. They just want some fairness and equality in their mind. Again, I don't know what's going on there, and I choose not to say. But I was fortunate to go through a system of a merit promotional system where we actually had modules in place. You took an academic test, and then you had outside agencies and evaluators come in and evaluate your skills and abilities through writing exercises and oral interviews. And after that, they take into your appraisals over the course of your career, and they look at your background, your disciplinary issues if you had any, or just basically your judgment abilities, and they combine them all together and provide that back to the organization for promotional ability. And they listed us out 1 through 5 or 1 through 10 on a list. My idea is, if I'm fortunate enough to become your next sheriff, would be to put a merit system promotional process in place, and that takes away any of those discretionary promotions that may go on. Okay,
that sounds good. The other thing I want to talk about is the role of higher education in law enforcement. This is a somewhat controversial issue because a lot of sheriff's offices around the state are going to a system where you have to have a college degree to get a command staff position. A lot of old-time police officers who don't have college degrees, who feel they're good cops, don't necessarily agree with that. What do you think?
I think, like I said earlier, that law enforcement is more of a profession than just a job now. You know, when I started 21, 22 years ago, we carried redwood nightsticks and we would beat people, and that was the way we were trained, and that's what society allowed us to do. And society doesn't allow us to do that anymore. We don't carry redwood nightsticks. We don't beat people up like was done in the past. And it's changed. They want a more professional officer, and the way you get a more professional officer is an educated officer. I believe in higher education. I'm 45 years old. I'm working on my master's degree because I believed at the time when I was commanding the highway patrol in the Tampa region that I needed to learn about the new demographics of employees that we have working for us to be able to motivate them to go out and do their job professionally every day in a manner that represents the highway patrol where I worked and what the public expects out of them. I believe in that, and if I'm fortunate enough to win the race, I will encourage the deputies to continue their education. If they don't have their education, to go to school and get educated, and I think it enlightens them as to what their values will change, what their expectations of themselves are, and make them a much more professional officer. And we'll probably incorporate that into maybe some hiring practices and some promotional practices.
Okay, the flip side of that coin is another controversial issue in law enforcement, and that is physical fitness. We have a lot of officers in this community who are in great physical condition, who work out, who train. We also have others that are not, and who probably couldn't pass a mandatory physical fitness test. Would you make, what is the role, in your opinion, of physical fitness in law enforcement, and would you make passing a physical fitness test mandatory with the sheriff's office?
I think some sheriff's departments in state agencies have not only made it a mandate to get hired, they have taken it to a different level where some organizations will not even hire individuals who use tobacco who are just plain unhealthy. Is that it drives up the insurance costs for the organization. But I think the biggest issue too is for those individuals who are already in uniform is the public perception is what people see of us every day in our uniform appearance and our command respect that we have on the road or when we approach a house or approach a car, and that a lot of the tone is set off that first contact with the public. So the uniform appearance, the physical fitness appearance, but it then boils down to is that officer or that deputy in a condition to where he or she can take care of themselves if they become in a physical confrontation. Are they healthy enough to come to work every day? Because I'm sure their immune system will break down. It's just something that ultimately I believe it costs the agency if you have an officer or a deputy who is not fit, not just the public perception of it, but it's a long-term effects that ultimately we as taxpayers are paying for at the end of the day. And when they roll 20, 25 years or they're that physically out of condition, they're not good coming to work. They don't perform their duties properly, and they break down. They work shift work, and that's hard on their body as it is, so that's much more important to maintain their physical fitness level. Would I look at incorporating that into a system? Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, time for another break? Okay, we'll take a break. We'll come back with our last segment.